Evans. I am a sophomore here at CECA. Miriam and I are the co-founders of the Afro Student Alliance, which we started when we found ourselves sitting in the back of World History, waiting for something relatable to be mentioned. When we saw that the semester pass with not a single thing mentioned about Black or African history, we decided to take things into our own hands and start the Afro Student Alliance. This club is where we can, as students, connect culturally. The vision of the Afro Student Alliance is to serve the CECA campus with educational, cultural, and futuristic development around Afro studies. First and foremost, our club is not about racial or social identity, but about diving into the rich cultures and histories of the Afro community. By doing so, you'll see that students will gain new perspectives and begin to develop higher levels by getting a better understanding of life itself. We are looking to allow students not only to be a part of something that is bigger than themselves, but also to feel like they are as well. We want to help students be active members of their communities through volunteer and advocacy work. And this starts with the walls of our own school. This is not a club that just wants to hang out, but a club that wants to allow the opportunities for an understanding of Afros at a level that most courses do not offer. As a club, we strive to put forward opportunities for enhanced cultural excellence and intellectual growth through social, political, and career development and educational programs for our community. We are committed to recognizing the beauty and diversity that is the Afro community, all while raising the strong pride in our history, our future, and ourselves. By doing this, you will see that students will better be prepared for their futures because they will have access to opportunities and information they might not find elsewhere. They will be educated about the rich Afro culture and history within the African diaspora and will become successful leaders in our communities because they will have had that space to grow into that role. Students will be able to come together to express their diverse cultures in a positive light. As a club, we would like for our school to be more involved in the celebration and recognition of Black history, and for that reason, during Black History Month, we are having a seminar series that kicks off today with our guest speaker, Omar Montgomery. This series will allow you to understand the impact of Black history through multiple lenses. Now, I would like to introduce you to the Secretary of Student Government, Victoria Lujan.
Hello, my name is Victoria Lujan, and I am a member of the Afro Student Alliance, and I am also Student Government Secretary. What I would like to start with is, on behalf of the Afro Student Alliance, Student Government, and Colorado Early Colleges, we would like to thank Mr. Montgomery for taking the time to come in today and speak and educate us. And yeah, thank you again for your time. We appreciate it.
Okay, so our speaker for today is not only the biggest advocate for the city of Aurora, but is also an advocate for the youth in their city as well. He is constantly empowering young leaders in our community and is always standing up for the rights of people. He is a man of many titles, as he is the president of the NAACP Aurora Chapter, adjunct instructor in the Political Science and Ethnic Studies Department at CU Denver, and the Director of Equity, Culture, and Community Engagement for the Cherry Creek Schools District. Now, without further ado, please help me introduce our first guest speaker of our Black History Month Seminar Series, Omar Montgomery.
Is it okay if I remove my mask while I'm...
Yeah.
First, I just want to say, I'm not going to be up here long. I'm actually going to sit over there, especially when we get to Q&A. But I just wanted to get a look at this room before I start talking. Is this your first meeting of this group?
This is the first seminar.
First seminar, but not the first meeting?
No.
And if I understand, the organization is still waiting to become official with the school, am I correct? How many of you know exactly what it takes to start something and to see it all the way through? Let me tell you what I mean. How many of you ever started a puzzle or a project or a game, and you sort of get to the middle of it, and as you get to the middle of it, you're like, I'm bored with this. And sometimes you stop, sometimes you put a pause, sometimes you say, I don't see the fruits of my labor immediately because it's taking so long to get there. Sort of how the NAACP started, but I'm going to relate it to this organization here. The organization you started here. Students have always been the backbone of just about any struggle. Students your age. Students your age that have made movements viable, has made movements successful because of your voice. So before I start, I would just like for us to give a hand to everyone that is a member, to everyone that's been a part of this organization, organizing, spending your after-school time to be here. Let's give them a round of applause. The Afro Student Alliance. How many of you are thinking about going to college? Not that you have to, just thinking.
Thinking about what?
Going to college.
I went to Cal State University of Long Beach in Long Beach, California. And when I got to campus as a freshman, I worked 2 jobs. And I worked for UPS, and I worked as a peer counselor at the university. And I gotta say that for those of you who've been active in student organizations or active as a student, it's just like being a student athlete. You're spending hours, you're practicing, you're developing documents and things of this nature. I became president of our Black Student Union at Cal State Long Beach. And the work was so demanding that I had to quit one of my jobs, which had a financial impact because my family wasn't rich. Although my father was a college professor, it doesn't pay a whole lot of money, but it's a great job to have. My mother was a bus driver. Got up at 4 in the morning every single day to provide for the family. And I remember being BSU president and sitting in meetings just like this with my peers. And by the way, once again, when I say we was broke in college, we was broke. I'm talking, Taco Bell used to have this special for 29 cents. You can get as many tacos as you want on Tuesday, and we'll be scraping up change in somebody's beat up car to try to figure out how we're all going to put some dollars together to feed each other. That was my college days. We made so many different meals out of Top Ramen, it was ridiculous. We would put pesto sauce on it, Alfredo sauce on it. And then we'll create the sauce out of the packets that they had. I had so much Top Ramen, we probably should have just opened up a restaurant serving some type of ramen noodles or something like that, because that's how we survived. Another way how we survived is because we held each other accountable when it came to our academics and when it came to leadership. You said, well, how does this play into the NAACP? I'll bridge it together in a second. We made sure when any of us fell short, we picked each other up. We didn't criticize the person. We didn't talk about the person. Of course, we didn't have social media back then, so we wasn't doing the TikTok. We wasn't doing the Instagram. We wasn't trying to blast the person in front of 1,000 people. We were trying to figure out, how do we lift that person up when they fell? How do we lock arms when that person is saying, I don't know if I can pass this final? How do we stay up with you till 2 o'clock in the morning to get that paper done or to study for that exam? That's what I see here. Collective body, diverse students, who says we want to lift each other up and support each other. And you say, NAACP, founded 1909, but guess what? It wasn't founded by people who were senior citizens. It was actually founded by several people who were probably in their 20s and their 30s, early 30s, but had been in movements just about all their lives. And W.E.B. Du Bois, who was one of the founders, was the first African American to graduate with a PhD from Harvard University. Prior to working with the NAACP, he started something called the Niagara Movement up there in Upper New York, where he started something called the Talented 10. And with the Talented 10, he believed that the most educated among African Americans can come together and have a bunch of conferences and begin to solve those problems. The Niagara Movement lasted for about 4 or 5 years. Then he became part of the first group of people to start the NAACP in 1909. Now let's understand what was the original mission in 1909. 1909, we still was in Jim Crow era. How many of you are familiar with the Jim Crow era and what was taking place during Jim Crow? Jim Crow era was actually titled after a play. And it was a gentleman, white and black face, that was called Jim Crow, that was one of the characters within the play, but it also became a symbolism of what you call segregation. Segregation as into one group is dominant with empowered and controlled where another group can go, even sometimes when they cross the street, where they sit on the bus, where they go to school, where they sit at when they go to school. I want you to think about that. 1909, you couldn't sit in this room the way you sit now. You had black schools, you had white schools, you even had indigenous schools for indigenous population. So people were siloed and separated from each other, and then told stereotypes about each other. So stereotypes about the black community, stereotypes about the white community, stereotypes about indigenous populations, stereotypes about our Chicano brothers and sisters. What do you think about that? These were stereotypes that were embedded about us. Embedded about those who come from the continent of Africa, those who come from Mexico, those who come from Asia, and even some of our Irish brothers and sisters who had come here, our Jewish brothers. That sometimes made other people hate the other group. During the time of segregation, there was also this system of punishment where people were sometimes lynched from a tree. And I'm not trying to traumatize you. I just want you to say and hear what the NAACP were initially fighting. First, they were fighting for voting rights and also fighting to get rid of the system of lynching that people were using to punish black people for whatever they thought they could do it for. Whether it was winking at someone that was out of their race, sometimes standing up for themselves, sometimes even being a member of the NAACP could get you lynched. So they had a lot of uphill battles starting this organization. And later they began to broaden their focus. They even started a newspaper called The Crisis. And because Du Bois was so strong in academics, he was the one that actually started the magazines, flags, newsletters during that time. And he started The Crisis. But then the NAACP said they wanted to take up the fight for education. And started with a gentleman by the name of Charles Hamilton Houston. And let me tell you a little bit about Charles Hamilton Houston. Charles Hamilton Houston was a law school graduate out of Harvard, who later became the dean of the law school at Howard University, the separated school. Harvard is your prestigious Ivy League school. Howard is one of your famous HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities. If you take the dean of that law, he wanted to dismantle Jim Crow and the systems of Jim Crow.
So he trained his own legal team at the law school. And guess who was part of that legal team? It was a gentleman by the name of H Malcom, who became the first black Supreme Court judge in the United States. They began to sue school systems and said, we want teachers to have equal pay. We want the buildings to be the same. There was one law school at the University of Texas where a black student was admitted, but he had to sit in the hallway. He couldn't sit in the general class. He had to sit in the hallway, and they even developed his own dorm because they felt like it would disrupt the learning environment if he mixed with his white students. So, Charles Thomas Houston invented H Malcom, and then there was a famous court case called Brown versus Boyle Education, where this took place in Kansas. When he started out in Kansas, and there was a young girl who actually had a good relationship with her white neighbors. They all played together, but in that school system, they couldn't go to school. Now, mind you could play with your neighbors, y'all could have a good time in the park, but you couldn't go to school with them. So H Malcom, now that, he's a famous civil rights lawyer and attorney after being trained by Charles Thomas Houston, said we're going to take this case to the Supreme Court. Where he won in the Supreme Court, meaning that was the beginning of this managing the system we call Jim Crow. And later he becomes the first black Supreme Court judge. But it wasn't easy implementing every single thing that took place after the court filing was made. Little Rock, Arkansas. Anybody ever heard of the Little Rock 9? Where these 9 kids said, hey, we're going to test this system to see if we can go to any school we want. And what was waiting for them was a mob of people threatening to lynch them if they walked into the building. There was one girl who arrived late, and if you ever look at the pictures, she has on shades, and she sits down at a bus stop because she doesn't know what to do. These adults and these kids are yelling at her. She's by herself. And there was this elderly white woman who took her and said, we're going to get you out. So it wasn't easy implementing these changes. So the NAACP had been fighting for these changes ever since our existence. And even right here in Aurora, Colorado, the branch in Aurora, Colorado was founded by Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister. She is still alive today and still very much active in the branch. Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister actually started her civil rights struggles in states like Montana, Wyoming. Now I want you to think about this. Wyoming, Montana, where she was starting NAACP chapters and fighting against discrimination and trying to say that, hey, we need to treat everyone as an equal. And when she moved to Aurora, Colorado, she says there's this disconnect between the police and the community. So in 1991, she started the Aurora branch of the NAACP, and last year we celebrated 30 years of service as a branch. She's still with us today. The founder of our branch. And some of the things we have done, yes, I gotta say, we still have some work we have to do with our police department, but the relationship is better. There's still work we gotta do. Nothing is perfect, but because of her leadership, things are a little better. And yes, there's been some major incidences in the last couple of years with our police department and the community. I truly believe that some of the things that she has done within our city would help mend some of those relationships. And out of her work, we opened up an economic development center last year. And let me tell you about the economic development center, because I'm going to say this. Yes, you can be in civil rights, but there's also a part of our community that's entrepreneurs. How many of you want to open up a business? How many of you have aspirations about being a business person? How many of you know that, hey, what is an LLC? What is a C Corp? What are the taxes? How do you begin to invest your money? How do you outline a budget? So in this Economic Development Center, as much as, yes, we fight for civil rights, also believe that there is a need for our people to understand how economics work. How do you invest in the stock market? How do you understand cryptocurrency? How do you understand not just how to open a business? Can I tell you the easiest thing in the world is to open a business? The easiest thing in the world. You can open a business in less than 10 minutes right now. All you got to do is go to the State of Colorado website, type in a few numbers, and you have an LLC. You take that LLC number, you get an EIN number from the IRS. After you get the EIN number from the IRS, you go to the bank, you open up your bank account, boom, got a business. But do you have a business plan? Do you know how to make the business sustainable? Do you know who your clientele is? Have you done the research to figure out who am I going to sell to, what product I'm going to sell? Who are my competitors? How do I make myself different? How do I make sure that what I'm delivering is what the community wants? This is what the Economic Development Center helps you with. And it's free. I'm going to repeat that. It's free. How many of you hear about hip-hop artists that go broke? One day they got bling bling in their mouth, they got the car, they got this, and next thing you know, they're like, can you donate to my, can you donate to my fund because I got to pay my taxes? I had to sell my $1 million house because they didn't stay within their means. How many professional athletes you see that have made $400 million or all this money and didn't budget it right to make sure that the money works for them? You say, what does opening a business have to do with civil rights? Because city contracts, state contracts, and federal contracts go to small businesses. Small businesses reinvest in the community. Who they hire, who they engage with, who's their clientele. So if there's not equity within these contracts being distributed, then that can have a financial impact in communities. So it was a privilege for us to open up the Economic Development Center. So I'm going to talk about one other thing, then after that, I want us to open it up for Q&A. I want to hear from you. How many of you know how Black History Month started? By who? You're almost there. I feel it. You and I got the brainwaves going. I'm going to name a name. I bet you know who this is. Dr. Carter G. Woodson? Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Let's understand this. You and I are going to break this puzzle together. We're going to break this puzzle together. Black History Month was started by Dr. Carter G. Woodson during the 1920s. He was the second man to graduate from Harvard with a PhD. So it was Du Bois, and then it was Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson even did something even more bolder. He started something called the Negro History Journal, the first academic journal, not a magazine. I'm going to tell you the difference between a magazine and an academic journal. An academic journal meaning that your articles is judged by other people with PhDs and master's degrees. So he started an academic journal called the Journal of Negro Life, and then transitioned and said we must celebrate the accomplishments of the Black community. Now I'm sure in some of your classes, they may be talking about some of the accomplishments among different groups, and during February we talked about the accomplishments of Black History Month. Is that fair to say? So me and him breaking this code together, we got this, we got this. So when we began to talk about Black History Month, Dr. Carter G. Woodson had, people say it's in the shortest month of the year. Do anybody know why he chose the month of February? He chose the month of February because there's two people he admired in that month had birthdays. Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Frederick Douglass was an abolitionist, and Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. So people make this joke where they only gave us February as a month, and this is the shortest month of the year. How many people hear that joke when it comes to that's because they didn't understand what Dr. Carter G. Woodson was doing. And by the way, let's understand this. He wanted us to talk about the accomplishments of black people during Black History Month, not some of the things that we hear. How many people hear during Black History Month, or when people talk about black people in general, they talk about the negative? How many people have heard those things? Where people say, well, you know, it's like 1 out of 4 black men in prison. Oh, by the way, there's that angry black woman. She's about to come out and knock you out. How many people here, well, CP time, you know, we don't color people time, meaning we running late. Those things are things that we get rid of during Black History Month. And talk about some of the accomplishments. Talk about your Oprah Winfrey. Talk about your Charles Hamilton Houston. Talk about your Fannie Lou Hamers. Talk about people who are doing well in business. Right here, we have a black billionaire that lives right here in Colorado named Rob Smith. How many people knew that? He lives right here in Colorado. By the way, went to a DPS school. He is a black, not millionaire, not thousandaire, billionaire. Yeah, he in that B club. And a lot of people don't even know. A lot of people don't know that a gentleman by the name of Richard Lewis, who don't even stay that far from here, opened up his own tech and communications company. And that brother is doing great, and he gives a lot of money to the community. There's a few sisters here that's doing great work. You have a sister by the name of Simone Ross who's down over the Women's Chamber, who does phenomenal work in the community. What I'm trying to get you to see is that whether if it's the NAACP, whether if it's Black History Month, the goal is to talk about what is positive about the black community and begin to get rid of the stereotypes that plague our communities and sometimes cause us to dislike or hate each other. Let's talk about uplifting. And as I begin to close, and I sit in meetings with my college colleagues and some of the other college professors, if I hear them say something negative about the black community, I'm like the first one with my hand raised. I'll be like, you know, I'm from Cali, so there's the Colorado Omar, and then there's the California, Los Angeles Omar. The Colorado Omar is this guy here. The California, Los Angeles Omar, what you say? Do we need to have that discussion? That's a different Omar. That Omar is like, do we need to really have that discussion? Don't let the suit and tie fool you. I'm not going to put hands on you, but we're going to have this discussion. You know, and somebody say, hey, you know, well, you know, I don't believe this student can live up to the academic challenges. I'm like, are you out your mind? Have you given them the resources they need to live up to those challenges? Have you had lunch with that student? Have you talked with that student? Have you engaged that student? As an educator, I believe all kids can succeed. As an educator. And it's my job as an educator to uplift your spirit, to let you know you can succeed. And then I need you to meet me halfway. And when you meet me halfway, I'm going to go 100% in to get you what you need to be successful, regardless of who you are and what you look like, and regardless of your ability. So with that stated, I am so glad you have this organization that is championing what is the best of our African community, our black community, and more importantly, our diverse community. All of us working together to support each other. Because the same way we support Black History Month, are we supporting Hispanic Heritage Month? Are we supporting our Asian American Heritage Months? Are we celebrating the different religions? Are we celebrating just different holidays together? Not talking about the negative, but how we uplift each other. With that stated, I want to say thank you for having me here today, and I just look forward to answering your questions and being a part of your space. Thank you. And they asked me at a coffee shop, and I said kidnap because that wasn't the original intent they told me the meeting was about. They told me we was going to talk about me being vice president or sergeant at arms. Then they said, that's not really what we want from you. We want you to be president. And we got the blessing of Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister, and we had an election. I was elected, and I got to say this, one of the best decisions I ever made, outside of joining my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Being president of the Aurora branch of the NAACP is an amazing opportunity. It's hard work, and I love the work of being able to engage groups like this, and also at the same time being able to advocate for the community.
Do you participate in any law or activity when it comes to the vaccine?
I couldn't hear you.
Do you participate in any laws or like the judicial branch when it comes to the vaccine?
So what's your work in legislation?
Legislation. We do a lot. Actually, I get phone calls every day. So tomorrow I'll be with the governor talking about a new public safety initiative. I'll be on a call with Congressman Crow about talking about Black History Month. We have a working with Senator Bennett on a restorative justice bill. What does that mean? Especially for the schools, this is very important because instead of suspending and expelling students who may do nonviolent stuff on campus that cause them to get expelled, we can have a restorative justice program so that those students can, one, still be held accountable, but also learn from that mistake and not make it again, instead of being expelled or suspended and sent home, where possibly that's not going, I'm gonna tell you, that's not an effective way of working with our students. So that's just a brief. We've done stuff for the environment. We have partnered on a lot of different legislation. I will say this, we are very concerned about voting rights, especially in our southern states. And so although we are in Aurora, we are encouraging people to register to vote right here in the state of Colorado, but also use their voice with our congressional folks so that they pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act so that everyone have equal access to vote. So those are some of the things at the legislative level. Yes.
What do you see the future of the Aurora branch being of the NAACP?
The future of the Aurora branch of the NAACP is that I think in the next 5 years, I want us to, one, have as many people in the city registered to vote as much as possible. This is number one. Number two, that the Economic Development Center we're in, we're able to sustain, we're able to keep the services free. One of the things I didn't share was that during COVID, we gave out $5,000 grants to small businesses so that they could survive during COVID, and that's in partnership with another organization called the Village Exchange Center. We have another partnership with another organization called the Second Chance Center, where we're going to be doing a lot of social justice work. I would hope that we have a youth branch. Our youth branch is a $10 yearly fee, but guess what? We pay it for you. So we want to grow our youth branch so that we can begin to continue to work with our youth so that they can take over these seats in the future and also be voices in their schools and voices in the community. We train you to go talk in front of your school board, how to engage your mayor, how to engage your city council, how to engage your county commissioners and things of that nature. So growing our youth branch is going to be extremely important, and if you want more information on that, I can send it to your chairs, your chairs, and make sure that that information is shared.
I also have one more question.
Yes, and then I'll go to the other right, yes.
Okay, so I'm the Secretary of Student Government, and I was wondering, what would you recommend, like, student government and the Afro Student Alliance do to, like, work together to change, like, make change in our school? Like, what are things you would recommend?
I think the first thing is getting it acknowledged as a institutional student organization, getting its full recognition on campus first. And second, after getting this full recognition on campus, let's begin to figure out how do we use affinity groups to make our communities grow closer. Because some people think when you have affinity groups, oh, you're trying to separate, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that. Well, the separation was already there when some things wasn't embedded in the curriculum. The separation was already there when there are still certain levels of discrimination that plagues us all. The question is, how do we use the affinity groups to learn more about a culture? For example, I love hanging out in the Ethiopian community. And the Ethiopian community, I go to Ethiopian coffee shops and I'm like a kid in the candy store. I go to Endless Grind, I go to Mojo, and I just sit there. And if you've never been to an Ethiopian coffee ceremony, it is like the most beautiful thing in the world. The coffee is strong, so I'm like woke the whole day. I got to do that early in the morning. That little shot of coffee, I'm like, woo! So I would say it inspires us to do more travel. Because I had a chance to work with my Chicano brothers and sisters. I was able to go to Cuba, able to go to Brazil, able to go to the Caribbean, able to go to the continent of Africa and have a beautiful time, able to teach a study abroad class in Costa Rica. So it teaches us how to embrace our differences and not use stereotypes as a way of judging each other. So I feel if you two can bridge that gap together and show it can be successful, you may begin to see other groups begin to come up and say, hey, I want a group that's based on my Islamic culture. You know, I was raised Christian and Muslim. So, you know, people say, how do you do both? I said, that's the crazy thing about black folk, especially black people in America. On one end, I went to church, and the other end, I went to the mosque. And I just, you know, people say, you can't do both. I said, I don't know how to do anything else. I celebrate Ramadan and I go to church. What do you want me to do? So I say that to say that you want to begin to figure out how do you make this more of a teaching and learning experience and tell people it's not about separating, it's about us learning about each other. You have a question?
So you're a professor, right?
I am an adjunct instructor at CU Denver, and currently I'm director of agriculture community engagement for Cherry Creek School District.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, have you done any research specifically into looking to potential solutions to try and mitigate the systemic racism that we still deal with? And if you have do you have anything that you want to share, I guess?
Well, when I was at one thing about working at the university, it's about research. It's about just different. The first thing I was working on was resiliency of African American males in higher education, and that whole research was to dispel the myth that black males don't want to go to college and that black males cannot succeed in college. And what ends up happening is that some black men transfer to other schools and you don't know if they graduated or not because you don't have that data. So if the original school I went to cost too much, and I decide to go from, let's say, the University of Colorado, Denver to, let's say, Southern University. You may have that I transferred, but you may not have the data if I graduate. Then the other part of those stats are, they measure it in 5 years. Many African Americans graduate in college in 6 to 7 years because of the economic burden it puts on their families. So some of those numbers are not correct, but when they present it, it is presented as if black men can achieve in college, and that is far from the case. So that was one of the things I was researching when I was at the university, and we began to figure out how do we get scholarships, because you get good scholarships your freshman and sophomore. Man, you get all the scholarships in the world. For those of us that's been to college, your best financial years is your first 2 years. Then that third year, your junior year, when the grants start to decrease, and especially your senior year when you really need it, we need to begin to have more what you call gaps
scholarship between the sophomore and senior year so that those people won't be working 30 to 40 hours, then have to go part-time, then it pushes their graduation date out. So, graduation date out. And last but not least on that, a 3.5 GPA and higher is worth anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 in scholarship. What people don't teach you early is that your GPA has an economic incentive. They just tell you to get good grades. Your GPA has a strong, I sit on the board of several scholarship foundations, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there are kids walking out with $20,000 to $30,000 cash that don't go to school, that goes to them to pay for their education because of their GPA or because of their community service. So that's a long answer to your question. Any other questions? She said, what do I think is the biggest problem in the black community is that, and please don't take this the wrong way, is that we're constantly looking at the problem and not looking at the success in the black community. Miriam and her father and I, when we get together, we talk about what is great going on in our community. What are the kids doing? That's great. People say, but what about the games? What about the shoes? What about that? But that's going on in your community too. It just don't get as much press. So, everybody got shootings, everyone got murders, but why am I going to focus on that if only one person out of 100 is doing that? Why am I not focusing on the other 99 that's doing great? I think the problem is we focus on the negative in the black community, and we need to begin focusing on all the great things that's going on. On social media, I see so many young brothers and sisters that's doing great work with their podcast. There was a brother that's making like a couple of $1,000 a month in high school because he was reconditioning tennis shoes. I'm sitting up here like, that's all he was doing? Because, people spend, I'm an old school cat. I ain't spending $100 on no tennis shoes. I don't care what, I'm old school, I'm just not. But if you spend $200-300 on some tennis shoes, you're going to want to keep them clean. So he figured out a way to recondition them, and he charged them $50 to $80 a pop. Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about some of the brothers and sisters who graduated from college and middle school? Graduated from college and middle school. Can you imagine that? You're so smart, you graduate from college and middle school. Or students here who graduate with their AA degree along with their high school diploma. That's success. Why are we talking about those successes in the black community and not just talk, and the problems, just their problems, and not honor those problems? We got issues with poverty, got issues with homelessness, we got issues with some aspects of academics. But at the same time, while we're talking about those problems, if you begin to model some of the success that's taking place, then people will walk out with more of a positive life. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, then with the chain of question, what do you think is the most positive?
The most positive things about the black community is it's a very resilient community. Give you an example. My grandmother came here from Vicksburg, Mississippi during the time of Jim Crow, when they were having all the lynchings and stuff. She had about an 8th grade education, but would read the newspaper every single day to tell you everything about the news. She was the one that taught me how to vote because she would make me dress in a suit to go and vote with her. Now, I couldn't vote because I was younger, but she wanted me to show the importance of voting. So when we begin to talk about what is going on good in the black community, to me, it's the small businesses, it's the success of youth that I see. As a matter of fact, just looking in this room, for those that identify as black, to me, is success. to me is success. All of you are successful, but your question was specific about the black community. So I'm not isolating any other groups. I'm just saying anywhere where I see black youth achieve, I am celebrating and I'm giving them all the love in the world. So to me, it's right here in our own immediate space. Our teachers, our administrators, the sanitation worker, the mailbox person, if they are doing great in the community, whether it's working, whether it's being a part, we need to celebrate and uplift those individuals. Yes, ma'am.
So, kind of representing the like white and Latin community, what is stuff that the Latin and the white communities can do to support the black community?
It's what we do to support each other. It's when you hear negative stereotypes saying that's not your experience. Like when people come tell me, I was in a meeting earlier today, and for those who do not know, I ran for mayor for the city of Aurora. I lost about 200 votes. That's a whole nother story. But the person that won, someone tried to get me to say something negative about it today. I said, I have nothing negative to say about that person. I said, that's the mayor of the city. And do we agree on decisions? No, but that doesn't mean I have to talk about his character. It's when we are in spaces, how do we use our voices to uplift and not treat each other bad, not saying anything bad. I don't want to say anything. People say, Omar, you live in the fantasy world because there's some bad stuff out there. Yeah, there's some bad stuff out there, and I acknowledge it. But at the same time, why can't we just uplift each other? And I'll sound like a broken record because I say this to the adults as well. When I played basketball, my basketball coach told me one thing. He said, even the people on the bench that's not playing has just as much as important role as the ones that started. He said, because they're the ones that help you practice. They're the ones that's cheering for the bench when you're down by 10. They're the ones that's going to tell you in the game, hey, get back. That person down there is wide open. They're the ones that when you come on the bench that's going to give you that high five after you done missed maybe a couple of free throws. I won't mention no names. But I say that to say that when you're in spaces and you're hearing negative commentary, it's about, if I hear negative commentary about your people, I say, no, it's not true. Or saying, that's not my experience. And that's how we begin to support each other. And what I consider to be in this world that is racialized, it has separated us by race, gender, and religion, instead of looking at the human factors that are common between us.
Have you like dealt with any projects that try to like help benefit the Native American community, like at all?
Man, I gotta tell you, see, I worked with a sister named Dr. Rendon. I worked with another sister by the name of Teresa Gutierrez. And see, all of our offices were in the same spot. So we always supported each other. When they had people going to South Dakota to protest the pipeline, we buying water, we buying everything so they could take it up to the pipeline. And some of our black students went up there with them to protest. When it came to events on campus, we always supported each other, spoke at each other's events to show that alliance. So yes, we've been there for each other, especially, I say in the state of Colorado, we see a lot of diverse groups coming together to support.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When you went to Africa, what country did you go to, and what was your experience like there?
I went to Ghana. I was in Accra. I was at the University of Accra at the Dome. In Ghana, I went to Kumasi. Yeah, went to Kumasi, went to the Kente Village, went to Cape Coast, went to, I was all over Ghana. Like, I was a tourist, but yet looking at it from an academic lens as well. I'll be honest with you. At that time, I was younger, and I was trying to figure out if my job wanted to build a satellite campus in Ghana, I don't need to get back on the plane. I will stay here. The people were kind, nice. I was in my best shape. I ran every single morning, and there was a brother that was there that used to live in the United States, but he was from Ghana, And he says, Omar, I'll go running with you. And so he took me up in these hills, and we came back down. And I gotta say this, I laid on my bed for 3 days straight because that boy, he outran me like crazy. But the fact that he took time to run me, he took time to show me the community through our job, show me how to catch the bus. Because there's a unique bus system in Ghana where there's your regular public bus, and then there's these other buses where you got to know the different hand signals and where they're going. And it took me a while to learn that, and after getting lost a couple of times. And they got taxis, by the way. The same homes you see in Aurora, you see in Ghana. Mm-hmm. Same hotels you see in Aurora. What you hear about the continent of Africa is what you see on TV. Yes, they're starving in poverty. Hell, there's poverty right here on Colfax. There's a house that people are sleeping in tents on Colfax. And if we only showed that to people around the world, people would think that's all there is to the United States. In Africa, there are millionaires, billionaires, homes, there's street lights, there's hospitals, there's research, there's car dealerships ran by African communities and built by African communities. So, it was one of the best experiences of my life because I'm able to tell people Africa is not what we say it is. Yeah. Man, I gotta tell you this. That's a long right. So I only eat fish. I don't eat chicken, beef, or pork. So there was this restaurant that had jazz, and I would go there and I would get fish. I get the piece of fish was like this. And they put it on some rice, and then they got they got stuff called fufu. You never had fufu? I didn't do the soup because the most of the soup had the escargot in it, and the snails in Ghana, it ain't like the little snail. We eat snails. Yeah. So what turned me off was that my partner, he was the group of people I was with, he was like eating the soup and he pulls out this big snail and he bites. I'm like, no, that's right. But a lot of people was eating it. A lot of people having a great time. So, the jollof rice, the fish, what else did I have? I did taste the fufu. They have all these different patties. And by the way, they got regular food too. Like if you are not into the food that's like indigenous, I would say have a lot of the indigenous food. That's why I had to run because I was gaining weight. I would say go there. Or better yet, I would say this. Can go to Africa, talk to you. Aurora speaks over 152 different languages. And we have a lot of brothers and sisters from the continent of Africa. Their families would love to cook for you. And I guarantee you, they can bring from Ethiopian food, Somalian food, Eritrean food, Nigerian food. And people think, well, aren't all these foods the same? No, spices are different. How things are prepared is different. How you even eat sometimes is different. So, any other questions? Yes.
How can we come together and share each other's cultures?
I'm gonna tell you, there's three things that bring cultures together: entertainment, food, and travel.
Food is why some of you are here today.
But if we were able to expand it and have a global food fest right here on campus, if we were the different types, there's a Greek restaurant not that far from here called the Athena. They have Greek food. You have, I would say, go to one of the coffee shops or bring one of the coffee shops here and go through an Ethiopian coffee ceremony. I would say Nigerian, West African food. Trust me, you can find plenty of people that would love to cook for you. And then from there, have them tell the history of the food. Where it comes from. Why is it here? What is so special about that food to you?
And then have, I know at CU Denver, we used to have this big African event where all the different countries would do their indigenous dances. And then at the end, they all would do one dance together. So it doesn't even have to just be the continent of Africa. It could be just all the different groups represented doing their indigenous dances or indigenous entertainment, and then figuring out something where you can come together. You have another question?
I was just gonna ask how you feel about like the controversy with reparations, and like how like you think that would be like platform, like if you like support it. Or
If
like,
I support reparations.
yeah, basically. That's,
And in what form?
And in what form? Anybody familiar with Tulsa, 1920?
yes.
Anybody familiar with what took place, same sort of similar took place, happened in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina? Or what took place in Florida, Alabama, Mount Bayou, Mississippi, where black communities had their own money, had their own banks, everything. They were burnt down by people who were jealous of what they had, especially during the time of Jim Crow. Those people still haven't made whole today. The descendants of Tulsa is still fighting to get their settlement that was originally given to them for the burning down of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, if you take what their economic situation would be today if that community was able to survive,
But you adjust for inflation. So
if you adjust for inflation, cost of living, all that great stuff, then those people should be made whole. Now let's take it a step further. A lot of insurance companies made monies on the backs of slavery by insurancing slave owners. And many of those insurance companies exist today. I feel they should be paying into this pot. So yes, I believe in reparations, and I do believe that, and you said in what form? I think if you took my money away from me, you can't tell me how you give my money back. So if I wanted in college scholarships, you give it to me in college scholarships. If I wanted it in trust fund, put it in trust fund. But if you come rob me, and I was doing good with my money how I wanted to do it, and then you gonna tell me, well, we're gonna give it to you in an energy bill. Well, you didn't take it out of my energy bill account. You took it out of my savings account. You took it out of my bank account, and you took it when you burnt my property down. So it's up to me on how that money should be used. And I'll give you an example. You own the business, right? And I come rob you, and then I say, hey, dude, I'm gonna pay you back in Target gift cards. I rest my case.
So this question is a little controversial. So I am part of white people, obviously. But, so I have noticed that speaking with other white people who are extremely uneducated say a lot of stupid, I always about to say that, say a lot of stupid things like, well, we weren't the ones who did it. They weren't the ones who went through that kind of thing. How can we educate them? Because obviously they're stupid. So like, how do you educate them to understand that what they're saying is very flawed?
I'm going to say that a lot of people don't understand how they benefit from historical advantages. And some of them probably never will, just to be honest. But when you begin to look at a race where one group is able to start 10 paces with a head start because of how systemic racism has made things work, and another group has to start from the back. And by the way, they get roadblocks, getting hit by linebackers and all that other stuff to try to catch up with this group. Then we have to begin to figure out, because of all these different segregations and how it has impacted us long term, which is what he was alluding to about the reparations.
these are long-term impacts in the community. So some people will agree with that, and some people say, nah, just take hard work, it takes this, take that. That's part of it too. But you can't deny some of the disadvantages that have been put in front of Black people, Native American people, some of our Jewish brothers and sisters, some of our Irish brothers and sisters, and some of our even impoverished white Americans. That they had to work extra hard and overcome several different barriers to get to where they were. And so they may say, you know what, they don't need reparations, they don't need this, they don't need that. Then let's see in your legacy, if we really was to do a comprehensive economic study, how you possibly benefited from your great-grandfather, grandfather, and parents to today, how that lineage was probably off the backs of people that was disadvantaged.
Based off that response, do you think if sociology were like a high school class, do you think society would like benefit to some degree?
I think it'll benefit from a critical discussion about it. I try not to change people's minds, I just try to put facts in front of them. Here are the facts, do with it what you want. But I think we need more classes to talk about history from an economic perspective, and not just this group happened here, this group was enslaved, this group was this group was that. How rich would Black history be if we talk about the original universities in Ghana, the original universities in Songhai, how politics almost was invented in Egypt, and mostly by queens, not by kings, by queens who were able to begin to look at religion and politics from a monolithic perspective and say, here are governing structures you need to have in place for your society to survive. Wouldn't you look at the Black community differently? You would look at politics differently. You would look at governing and religion. You would look at all those things differently. So yes, your answer to your question is yes, but it has to be with an authentic lens, people willing to listen and be challenged. If I taught that class, I want to be challenged. I don't want everything coming out of my mouth, people just saying, yes, sir. No. Challenge me. Because as a teacher, I'm not flawless. And I'm growing and learning as well. So yes, I would love to see that at the high school.
Afro Student Alliance is planning a cultural fair in April. What advice would you like to give us to help better share our cultures and have everything organized the way it should be?
I would say invite as many as the different cultures to the table. I would say if you have a faculty advisor, always let them know what's going on, because the school may have some additional resources they may not be telling you about that the faculty, people be like, I don't want my faculty advisor knowing this. Nah, faculty advisors know where that hidden money is, know where the hidden resources is. So make sure that you invite as many groups as possible, publicize right, get it out early. And what's the goal? Is the goal to bring groups together, or is it just to have fun? Make sure the goal and your intentions are always listed and highlighted so people know exactly why you're having this event.
Thank you.
So what advice would you leave us off with as a club and as young adults?
Club and young adults. As a club, I am so proud of you and all of the support you have and the diverse support you have, that you don't give up on it being recognized by the school, number one. Number two, keep having events like this and invite the principal, invite the administration, send them an invitation for every single event you have, and let them know and show them the good work that you're doing. Do a newsletter so that you can share with the campus community what is taking place. And more importantly, don't make it so serious where you're not having fun. Have fun, and don't be afraid to have fun, and don't be afraid to celebrate each other. And when I say have fun, I'm talking about safe fun. If somebody's graduating and got a scholarship, y'all can have a scholarship celebration. Y'all can have a college signing celebration. College application pizza day, where people are in here filling out their college applications and having pizza at the same time. Going on field trips. There are field trips right here. The World Mall just built a whole new athletic center. The gentleman over there is He's a real nice guy, African-American gentleman that runs your Aurora Mall. He'll be happy to have y'all come over there and do a field trip. Yeah, just don't be so serious where you take away the fun. Even civil rights leaders, even before a march, Martin Luther King, before he got assassinated, was having a pillow fight. People don't know this. He was having a pillow fight. Think about that. A pillow fight. They're having a pillow fight in the hotel room. So, have fun. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for having me here today. It was a great event.
And anytime you need to come back, I don't say that part from here, but we're going to do it. I'll be more than happy to come back and support you.
Picture, MJ on the shit, Thriller, funny vibes every night. And